It's tough seeing your kid struggling in a football match. It's even harder when it's got nothing to do with their skills, how hard they're working, or even something within their control. When it's just that they're one of the smallest kids on the pitch, on the point of being physically bullied by players nearly twice their size, leading to a loss of confidence in their own abilities. This video will touch on 7 different ways to approach those size and confidence issues, and hopefully give you some ways to think about supporting your kid so they can keep their confidence and motivation for the beautiful game going forward. Size differences will always be present and will always matter in a physical sport like football, at least when it's organized the way it usually is across the world based around the year of birth. Your smaller kid might be playing against kids who are physically 4 or 5 years older than themselves. That makes a huge difference. A 12-year-old early maturing kid might be 35 centimeters or more than 13 inches taller than the late bloomer. Their weight might be twice, literally twice, compared to the smaller player. This holds true for both boys and girls. So it's no wonder that we see uneven and unequal physical capabilities between kids. Some organizing bodies have taken this reality and made some changes, like biobanding, where they, instead of grouping kids based on age, group them based on physical stature and physical maturity. That way, an early maturing 12-year-old might play against a later maturing 16-year-old just because their physical developments happen at different points in time. This has its own numerous challenges, but it certainly levels the physical playing field. How can you use this knowledge to help your kid? Well, for one, you could explain that your kid's skeleton is growing at a later time than the biggest kids. It's not something anyone can control, and for most kids, this will level itself out during their teenage years. Another action you can take is to take a leaf out of the biobanding playbook and have your kid play against kids who are roughly the same size every now and again. It might recalibrate their perception of their own skill levels when they experience that physicality is no longer the limiting factor. As a parent, it can also help your kid to see that being smaller might not always be a disadvantage. In fact, it makes him or her harder to keep track of for the opponents, and it might be easier for them to become ghosts on the pitch. Lean into their smaller size. Stop trying to win a wrestling match they are very likely to lose, and instead focus on winning the perception race. So quick thinking often beats quick feet. So by learning to use their brain, they might benefit from their smaller stature. And you could practice this at home as well. If you as a parent can be involved, great. If not, you might have to be creative in how you apply this. Set up a small game in the backyard or in the driveway. The defender, you as a parent in this instance, is bigger and stronger, but your Achilles heel, as it were, is your larger mass and slower change of direction. If you practice finding open gaps rather than collision zones, your kid can use your size and weight against you. You might have to exaggerate your movements in the beginning, but I reckon you'll be struggling to keep up soon enough if your kid experiences success and finds enjoyment in it. What we value and reward is quite often what kids gravitate towards. For instance, if we harp on winning a challenge, get stuck in, or use your body to knock him or her off the ball, we are incentivizing physicality. And there is nothing wrong with that in and of itself. As football is a physical sport, it's important to master those elements as well. It just might not be the best thing to focus on at this very moment in time for a smaller player. What we can do instead is to change what we track, what we say we value, instead of rewarding. And the rewards can also be what we say. Winning a physical challenge We can reward their scanning frequency as an example, counting the number of scans within a 1 minute span, and then saying, you did a great job of scanning there, 40 scans in that 1 minute. That can really change your kid's own experience of mastery. And you can also set specific process goals that are absolutely within your kid's control. Always scanning before receiving a ball could be an example of one such goal. If training with bigger and or older kids feels like survival for your kid, rather than a place where they have the time, space, and confidence to explore, their skills might not be as varied as they could have been. Giving kids autonomy in what practice sessions they attend and perhaps what position on the pitch they occupy during practice might just be the fertilizer for the intrinsic motivation that they need. This would naturally be something you'd be wise to talk to the coach or coaches about, but if you pitch it as a short-term experiment, they might be more willing to allow it if they are skeptical about your kid making those decisions. In practical terms, you can ask your kid, where on this big pitch do you have the most time to see the game? Let them choose their own space. If they feel like a victim in an under 13 practice, provide them the space for them to step back to. In tight spaces, long limbs can be a liability. A low center of gravity provides a faster change of direction potential, and that lower center of gravity also has some benefits when it comes to challenging for the ball. Even with a much lower weight, just being lower to the ground can make him or her virtually impossible to dispossess. You can test this out in the backyard or the driveway. Have your kids stand up tall with the ball at their feet, and you try to dispossess them. If you're a lot bigger and heavier, that shouldn't be hard for you, even if they're trying to keep the ball from you. Then tell your kid to drop down lower, so that he or she gets under you as the bigger player. Now try to push them off the ball. It will be much harder for you, and hopefully experimenting with different ways of shielding the ball, being really low or really wide or something in between, can switch on a light bulb for them in how they can approach facing bigger players in practice and in matches. In practices and in games, the speed at which the game is played at is dictated by the biggest and fastest players. This causes smaller kids to work comparatively harder because they have to adapt to non-optimal stride frequencies. Shorter legs require a faster frequency at the same speed, which is usually out of the range where they are most efficient, and a biologically less efficient nervous system. Kids more often use muscles in the front and the back of the thighs, for example, in order to stabilize movement. This is called co-contraction and gradually decreases with age and with practice. As a result, smaller kids might need to have more scheduled recovery time than it would appear. You can help create and protect this time by not scheduling out every hour of the calendar and to ask non-performance related questions after practices or games, like what did you notice about the space today? Rather than focusing on how well or how badly they played. This shift might be seemingly small, but make a difference in their recovery after physically exhausting practices or games. Use smaller players to give your kid mental models for their own game. If your kid is interested, show and study clips of Lionel Messi, Luka Modric, and Aitana Bonmati, just to give a few examples. Ask your kid how these players are using their size to their advantage. How are they avoiding contact? Where do they move? How do they escape the physical battles? What do they do when they are in a physical battle? And how do they use their opponent's bigger size against them? Don't give them the answers. Let them give you their interpretations. And if you think they are wrong or might be missing something, Ask why and what they're basing their thinking on. That way, they still have to figure things out, but you can lead them in the right direction at least. So there we have it. 7 different ways to approach those size and confidence issues. Hopefully, you have some ways to help support your kids so that they can keep their confidence and motivation going forward. I'd love to hear if you have some thoughts about these strategies or if you have done something else entirely. Let me know in the comments below. Building a skillful player is about designing the right environment. If you want to move from guesswork to building a personalized strategy for your child, check out the links in the description. If you are interested in watching another video on the topic of youth football and how parents can help support our kids, check out this video right here. Thanks for watching. See you next time.